Thank God it's Friday and it's a cloudy, rainy, very wet Friday morning. It's the 21st of May, 2026. Welcome to your perfect morning and starter right here on Channels Television. 22nd day, by the way, and I do look like the day, right? It feels like, you know, building a house in a few hours, driving through a very rainy and wet road. And this is, you know, a traffic advisory to all those who are probably driving and trying to get to work on this Friday morning within the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and further along to Ikorodu Road, Ikeja axis, where it's also probably raining as well. You may want to check your vehicles. You may want to check every other thing and ensure that, you know, the boxes are ticked before you get on the road. And if it's not absolutely necessary, because visibility is rather poor, and then you may want to delay your trip. But perhaps it is also symptomatic of what is to come, the APC governorship primaries, where, you know, there seems to be an epic battle that will take place in some particular states where there are still tensions and, you know, a consensus has not probably been reached in those states. You know, Oyo is one where the former Minister of Power and Senator, you know, Sharafaddin Ali are still, you know, jostling for the ticket. And, you know, another state that one should watch out for is Nasarawa, and then there's also Bauchi. But of course, we'll have all that conversation, you know, all of those talking points much later on the program. But another development that may give other political parties, you know, by the way, of which we've heard very little about their primaries besides the ruling party. Something came through from the courts yesterday, and it appears a lifeline, as I have said, for the other political parties. And the decision of the court ahead of the 2027 general elections, political parties have received relief after the Federal High Court in Abuja invalidated the timeline that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, issued for the conduct of primaries and the nomination of candidates. The court, in a judgment delivered by Justice Mohammed Umar, also set aside INEC's May 10 deadline requiring political parties to submit a register and database of all their members as a condition for qualifying to participate in the general elections. And of course, you can check that. I think it's Section 77 of the Electoral Act. The court, of course, presided over by Justice Mohammed Umar, also held that the time for the commission imposed for political parties to conduct their primaries and to submit, withdraw, or replace the names and particulars of their candidates for the general elections is inconsistent with the provisions of the Electoral Act 2026. And who are those, you know, filing this, who have brought this before the court? The judgment followed a legal action brought by the Youth Party, YP, to compel INEC to comply with the Electoral Act 2026 120-day pre-election deadline for submitting party registers and candidates' personal particulars. Even though the judgment was delivered on Wednesday, the certified true copy was made available on Thursday. And so what does this mean, you know, as we project towards the deadline, the supposed deadline before this court ruling? It means, you know, some of the things that we're projecting it could mean would be, of course, we'll have lawyers come through to interpret what this means later. But political parties may now have more flexibility. Time has been extended, more time to present database for those who have not submitted their database to INEC. Although INEC had said quite a number of political parties had complied with that ruling, then INEC powers reduced to within the limits of the law, and parties can now challenge unlawful deadlines. But all of this is if INEC does not appeal this judgment within the time frame provided by the law for INEC to appeal the judgment. And one of the questions that we could also be asking as well is that, you know, doesn't it check, you know, the possibilities of, you know, indiscipline and lack of organization of political parties? Because when there's a deadline, then individuals, institutions know that they have to comply with the deadline, and everything that must be done in the race to the deadline will be done within the time limits provided for it. But again, arguments have been to the extent that the deadline provided by INEC doesn't give political parties, especially because of those that have quite a number of litigations shaping, shaping their leadership and, of course, their party structure. And so they have to tidy up all those leadership issues, and some of them have not even been resolved. So we'll be having that conversation later on the program. And so our eyes are also on the process today as the governorship, APC governorship primaries will hold in states of the federation. Some would say that the race has already been decided before it starts. We've heard in the last 24 to 48 hours about, for instance, from Rivers State, where the governor has withdrawn from the race already, citing personal reasons for his inability to participate. And he had said that this is certainly not out of cowardice, but out of the more important need to keep the peace in Rivers State, and that the peace of Rivers State is more important than any political interest. And, we've had this conversation time and again about how this is evidence of the greater power struggle in Rivers State, and how power structures, endemic power structures, determine what happens in a particular state, who takes what. And that's why we've seen the pattern also in states where there were no contest as to who is running, who is getting the ticket automatically. We've seen governors anoint candidates. We've seen even those who had challenged and decided to go ahead and challenge the anointed candidate or the endorsed candidate by the sitting governor, the incumbent, or the other leading members of the party. We've seen them eventually withdraw from the race. And so undoubtedly, there are events happening behind the scene shaping the emergence of these candidates, which suggests that there are what Jeffrey would call a political hegemony. There are bigger political actors behind the scene who determine who gets what as we run up to the 2027 general elections. And speaking of Jeffrey, he finally joins me now, and I can heave a sigh of relief. Hi, Jeffrey.
So sorry, I can see you trying to struggle to catch your breath.
Yeah.
I'm also trying to catch my breath, literally.
No, Jeffrey, you're never under pressure.
No, this is work pressure. Yes, I was so, by the way, great work you're doing. Good morning, and I can say welcome.
Good morning, Jeffrey.
I came late, and the reason is been raining heavy right here in Lagos. As a matter of fact, as I was coming here, I got to where I would have been here. There's also flooded. Cars were waiting whether or not to run through the water and see what will happen. So every car was waiting for another car to be an experiment. So I was honking, get out of the road. I'm racing to work. But these guys were just waiting, looking at the car in front, whether it will survive that flood. I had to take another route, a longer route to get here. And even that there was another set of flood in the air. So be careful out there. I'm literally trying to catch my breath because I had to drive a little faster than we usually should under the rain. But, we thank God we're here. Electoral, you're talking about the big one that happened yesterday about the youth party that took INEC to court. We're going to expand and explore that conversation with a lawyer who understands more of the law. But for me, two things broadly speaking. I'll just speak to it peripherally. First is good and bad for me. It's a concerning situation. First, let's start with the good part. The good part is the fact that I have looked through the Electoral Act, Bukola, and some of the actions of the National Assembly, and I can say from an enlightened point of view that some part of the legislation looks like is self-preservation, self-serving, than general interest of the people. And I'll give you an example. So for instance, section 138 of the Electoral Act that had removed certificate forgery and made it exclusively a pre-election matter. And it even gets more difficult that it is only the person who contested with the individual that was nominated, if he's found to have forged a certificate, that can institute a suit. So will the political party themselves, ruin the opportunity to be able if they win an election. So what that simply means is that if after the election has been conducted, from what I understand, I stand to be corrected, and you find out that somebody forged a certificate, if you're not a member of the party, you don't have any business with that. You have to have contested as somebody who participated in that primaries to be able to file an action. As a matter of fact, that doesn't invalidate. Because
you don't have a locus standi, as they say
they
in
restricted
court.
the locus standi to members of the party. I think is a very mischievous legislation, in my view.
But Jeffrey, besides the mischievous part of it, isn't this also, you know, a decision that is trying to check the challenge that we have with the courts, where, you know, we have a congestion with litigation matters, and there are other cases that are as important but do not have to do with election matters.
I was going
I do not get attention in the courts.
So where I was going to with this particular one, I'm just pointing some of the legislation that I personally have a problem with. They've explained the rationale behind it. In fact, the rationale, one of the major rationales is that do not go and inherit what you couldn't get on the field in courts. That is the reasoning from the conversations I've had with the people, some of the persons who drafted the law. But issues around certificate forgery is a constitutional issue.
And a public interest issue.
It should be both a pre- and post-election matter. So we can argue about that till tomorrow. But the other part, did I say good and bad? I don't know why I pause it what. But the other part of this, where I say is good, is the fact that these challenges, these parties that are taking cases to court, or these individuals that are taking cases to court, are beginning to challenge the position of the Electoral Act as against the Constitution. So that's important. That's important to me, and I'm sure the people who watch elections and people who are interested in politics. But the other part, Bukola, which you've mentioned, is the fact that how much time will INEC have to properly organize his house if, you know, they don't have time to put all of the elements together? Because now, with this timetable, INEC, if they don't challenge this case to the appellate court and all of that, they may have to update their timetable. Because what is it? We're going to explore what exactly. So for those of you who may not know, when we come out, when the lawyer comes, we're going to tell you exactly where the challenge was, what was challenged, and what exactly is the outcome of that challenge. But this is also bad news for the APC, because where I said I'm a bit sad is that the spirit of restricting primaries and timetable like we have till May the 30th was to stop this political movie.
Nomadic political
There's
culture.
a word that came to my mouth that's not good for television, so I'll restrict myself.
I think I can hazard a guess.
This cross-carpeting, this careless cross-carpeting, you can defect to another party, but if you want to be nominated by the standard of the Electoral Act today, if you were not a member of the party, as at the time the party submitted its digital and physical copies to INEC, and you were not part of it, you cannot go and be nominated in another political party. You can defect, no problem. But this has given more room now for people to say, okay, since APC did not give me the ticket, I'm talking about APC now, because all the elements that are angry with the party that did not have opportunity,
they now have this window.
They'll go and join the party.
And you know, before INEC announces, you know, whether it's challenging it or not, they have already the constitution or the legal backing following this court decision, you know, to exit, maybe even silently, to other political parties. And if INEC even challenges it, will anything significantly change? You know, if we see eventually those who have failed political ambitions are eventually found to be members of other parties, working silently for other parties because they couldn't get further their political ambition under this current timeline. And, you know, they would have the court decision as a legal covering for them, Jeffrey, even though INEC eventually challenges it. So INEC's reaction to this should be swift, in the immediate rather than in the long term, to, you know, check any form of nomadic political culture resurfacing within the next, you know, 24 to 48 hours. That's, you know, a projection that will also be a fallout of this court decision.
Well, with this judgment, the nomadics have a good day.
Yeah.
We'll take a break when we come back. We'll bring you what the dailies are saying, and we'll get to that very conversation that Bukola and I are just looking around for, this issue about INEC's reaction to the latest court judgment. Stay with us. Welcome back, Mr. Dayakintobi joins us. Good morning and welcome.
Tough drive to the studio this morning.
It was really...
Ooh. Even you?
Yeah, even
you're an early bird.
Yes, I was.
Early bird, yes.
In fact, being an early bird worked against me today because I was coming at the height of the storm. There was one point where I couldn't even see at all.
Wow.
And, you know, our hazard lights were on. And we were...
Mine is still on.
Yes, I saw your... By the way, we need to go and turn the hazard light on.
Yeah, it was a tough drive. But thank God we're all safe. I think Nigerians should allow a bit of extra time, especially those in Lagos and in areas where it's raining. We should be more cautious driving today. Drive slower. Your brakes are not as effective when they are wet.
Yeah. And
it's really storming. So allow a bit of extra time to get to work this morning.
In fact, as a matter of fact, maybe after that, I'll call my mechanic to check the brakes again. It was not a funny drive.
Not at all.
Let's get to the papers.
Okay.
The Guardian newspaper is where we'll get started from. The Guardian is where we'll get started. The Guardian is leading with the court ruling that happened yesterday. So we saw on the enrolled order of courts, INEC timetable relief for opposition as parties weigh options after court ruling. So you can see a plethora of names returning, new kids on the block who are aspiring to serve as governors in their state, who have been in politics for as long as I can remember. 2027, APC consolidates as governors loyalist sweep primaries. So when I saw that court judgment, I said, this is not good for the APC. All the angry people are heading out.
Two comes to mind immediately, Governor Fubara and Desmond Elliott. Those are the first two that came.
Ned Nwoko, Omar Agege.
Yes, indeed, yes.
Abdullahi, is it Mustafa now? Some gentleman, the gentleman in Kwara. I could go on and on.
They've all got a lifeline now, a reprieve, because all of a sudden it's not over. The fat lady hasn't sung yet. It's not over. It's not over yet. But the thing for me that was most poignant is the fact that no law is settled law until it's actually been challenged.
Tested.
Yes, it's got to have been tested and challenged all the way. You know, National Assembly can codify a law and pass it, and it can be signed by the president, but it doesn't really mean that it's constitutional. And the only people who have the purview to talk about the sanctity of or the constitutionality of any new law is the courts. And for years and years and years, many laws have been passed that nobody ever thinks of challenging, and we're just living according to that law. And then down the road somewhere, somebody maybe gets their rights violated and decide, let me just out of annoyance go and challenge this thing. I'll give you one good example, Lagos State sanitation law. For years and years and years, we stayed at home on Saturdays being restricted simply because the State House of Assembly said that's the way we should do things. Then one day somebody got annoyed because he had to go somewhere on a Saturday morning, and I think the Kai kick against indiscipline stopped him and said, oh, you are in violation of the law. He took Lagos State government to court that you can't restrict my full freedom of movement simply because you want me to clean my gutter on a Saturday morning. And at the end, even though the case is still on appeal, but the lower court found that truthfully, it was a violation of constitutional rights to restrict movement on Saturdays. So I encourage all of us that anytime we sense that a law might not be just, might not be fair, that we should try and do something about it as opposed to sitting back and just accepting it. In terms of this one that the court did yesterday, well, as Jeffrey pointed out, it has its good side, it has its bad side. The first thing you're going to see is everybody bailing out of a sinking ship because those who feel, and there's a lot of aggrieved people in APC.
Right now.
Yes, this seems to have been the most contentious primaries since we came back to democracy in 1999. I remember that at one point the president said that the governors are in charge and that the governors should be the one to determine how the primaries run and who the candidates are. However they organize this thing, it's left more aggrieved people than those who are happy. So there's a lot of turmoil in the APC right now, and perhaps what has happened here will expose, you know, the shortcomings in terms of we might suddenly start seeing a lot of defections to other parties, which won't bode very well for the APC. But I suppose it's all part of politicking. Remember what we said, a party is an SPV. just to get you to office. So if you don't achieve that objective,
look for another SPV.
You go to another SPV, absolutely. In Oyo State yesterday, for
United
example.
in SPVs. Oh, God.
Yes, Oyo State yesterday, the governorship primary, Sharafaddin Ali beat the socks off former Minister of Power, Bayo Adelabu. He actually came a distant third. Somebody else was second. And all of a sudden, I'm now starting to wonder that Adelabu in 2023, he left APC and went to Accord simply because he wasn't able to get the ticket in APC. So now the courts have given him a lifeline if the results yesterday, if they hold. You know, of course, they have tribunals they can appeal to. If those results hold, I don't doubt for a minute that he will go to another SPV, maybe Accord again. Because remember, he resigned his position because to fulfill his governorship ambition. I don't think he's just going to, you know, sit back and allow it to pass like that. He's going to look
challenge it, right?
He's going to look for other options.
Well,
absolutely.
there's the appeals committee of the party at the national level that is to determine all of this.
Yes, indeed.
So we see a list already showing the outcomes. There's Hamzat, successful, Chinda, successful, Bargo in Niger State.
That Chinda one still confuses me because he's the minority leader in the House. I mean, he's in the PDP. I've never seen him resign from the PDP. How can he suddenly be the APC candidate? I don't understand. I'm really confused about Rivers State.
It's for them to challenge it.
It's the Rainbow Coalition.
No, even if it's a rainbow, even if it's a rainbow coalition, you have to defect.
You have to resign from one party.
You understand?
Yeah.
You have to resign and be a member of the other party. Although there's nothing that stops you from being a member of two political parties expressly, from what I've seen in the law. But being nominated, we should
but within political parties, themselves, they have laws, you know, that prevent any form of anti-party activity.
Let's wait for it to be challenged. If it's wrong, somebody will challenge
What
it.
I know is that, I stand to be corrected, I don't think I've seen him, his resignation and the defection being announced by the speaker or whoever is sitting.
Could he have done it quietly? I suppose
no. It's not
such
possible to do it quietly. There's no such thing as quietly. Because you would communicate to the speaker. And he would announce it. The speaker will not announce our plenary to the members. So that makes it public. So there's no quiet defection.
Especially not of a ranking
political
member.
Class are just, it's just a messy situation.
Well, you know, Jeffrey, it's reminiscent of the redefinition of our political values and culture that I was talking about yesterday, where we have an FCT minister who is a PDP member but determines what happens in both the APC and the PDP in his home state, River State. And so what does this mean for our political...
Openly. There's nothing wrong with playing the double
candidates
game,
who have emerged in that
openly
state.
Is what is different.
Yeah. I think from the APC are ascribing their success to a PDP FCT minister.
Yes, Mr. Wike is redefining the whole way we play politics in Nigeria. I mean, because I've never seen anybody this brazen and audacious in terms of flirting, being in one party and actually openly identifying with another party.
Anyway,
absolutely.
Yeah, so let's get to another paper this morning. A New Telegraph is next. We see here also a New Telegraph leading with the big story from the court. Court nullifies INEC's deadline, gives parties till September to submit membership registers. And atop that big headline, you see 2027 election timetable. You know, but Mr. Kitobi, there's something at the bottom of New Telegraph, the bottom strip under the big picture, that catches my attention and, of course, echoes my sentiment that has been, you know, uppermost in the last couple of weeks now for a very long time. And I believe Nigerians are all worried about the state of the nation as far as security is concerned. But the patriots are the ones speaking, of course, led by Elder Statesman Chief Emeka Anyoku. The patriots raises concern over rising insecurity, poverty ahead 2027 elections. And there's a rider here, Tinubu must account for, it's a very tiny one, I hope I can get to it, account for hunger, rising debts, power failure. That's ascribed to Adebayo. Mr. Kitobi, what are your thoughts on this, and how will this continuing insecurity, in particular, and poverty, coupled with poverty, shape the 2027 elections, especially the outcomes?
Well, when the patriots speak, we have a tendency to listen because apart from the fact that they are elder statesmen, led by Chief Emeka Anyauku, they are also apolitical. They're not partisan. So when they speak, they're speaking as Nigerians first and foremost, and as elder statespeople, they're speaking the truth. And generally, they're speaking the truth to power. So if they're talking about insecurity and poverty and, you know, governance and politics and insecurity and the 2027 elections, there's a tendency that we should listen and we shouldn't take what they say with a grain of salt. They have done an audit of the state of the nation today. The state of the nation today. And their report card basically is giving us a failing grade. They can't even pass us with a C. They're essentially saying that in the key indices of quality of life, we're failing at the moment, and they put a lot of the blame at the seat of the government, particularly insecurity and poverty. Now, sociologists will tell you that there's a nexus between crime and poverty, and that insecurity is generally being driven by the fact that people are not gainfully employed. Our youth are easy recruits in the hands of bandits, kidnappers, terrorists. It's very easy to recruit our youth because they're idle. They don't have jobs. They don't have food on their table. So it's very easy to win them over with promises of little succor. And so that it's inextricably entwined. When there's rampant poverty in the land, you will naturally see things like crime escalate. You will see things like insecurity. I mean, of course, our insecurity problems are greater than just the issue of poverty, but that calls to mind the issue of the Oyo State school people and the teachers that 8 days after they've been kidnapped, they're still in captivity. And I saw a heartbreaking video yesterday of the husband of one of the victims. I think it was the lady with the baby strapped to her back who was begging that the kidnappers should please come and exchange him for his wife and baby, and he will give his life if they would free those people. And it's just heartbreaking that, you know, this kind of thing can have happened, and after 8 days, they've not been rescued. And there's already a growing movement that's saying, just pay them whatever they want to secure the release of these people. Then after they're released, you can now start going after them. 8 days is too long. If after 8 days, we've not been able to get them, it's a failure not just of government, not just of our security forces. They've been tracking them in the forest for 8 days. They haven't been able to interdict them. So I listen to the patriots, and it's very sobering to hear what they have to say. And you juxtapose it against our daily realities. And like I said, they're coming from a place of credibility. They're not partisan. They're elder statespeople, and they want the best for Nigeria. Most of them are elderly. They lived in Nigeria in the heydays, the halcyon days of Nigeria, when this was a land of milk and honey and a paradise. That was when they were in their heyday. And to now see Nigeria having deteriorated this far in their lifetime, it's heartbreaking for them, and that's why they're speaking out with such passion and emotion and trying to offer advice to the power structure.
So that could be.
Yes.
It's a very disturbing. This one I just heard, and it's just heartbreaking. 2 months, 2-year-old baby.
Yes.
Is the reason why some of us will never understand anything that has to do with repentant bandits.
No.
I was talking to Bukola yesterday. I said, when you see a child, whether your child or any other person's child, they naturally disarm you with their smile, with their innocence.
Yes.
Whoever can keep that child captive is not a human being.
No.
I don't see that person should be booked, should have a date with his maker without any casualty. But we'll leave that to the government.
Yes.
Let's go to this Nigeria. No plan to change Nigeria's name, abolish Sharia in northern region. According to the presidency, I don't know where this story emanated from, but the presidency has reacted to say, some persons were saying, President Tinubu has to go exchange our national anthem. He's also planning to change the name of Nigeria to United States of Nigeria and to abolish Sharia, because the argument is, if you count, there's Sharia about maybe more than 20 times, I don't know the exact number, Islam, a couple of times in the Constitution, I think religion, but no Christianity or Christian or Christ in the end. So some people are agitating. Why do we have, why are we saying we're a secular state according to Section 10 or so, and then we're having all of that? So what do you make of this story?
Well, Yes, I don't think the president doesn't have the right to unilaterally on his own change the name of the country. Yeah, because he did the anthem. Doesn't necessarily. The presidency is a very powerful office, but there are certain things he cannot do. And on his own, he can't change the name of the country. And even in concert with the National Assembly, I think they'd probably still have to get public approbation before they can do it without any type of opposition. However, the presidency, as you say, has denied it, and so we should accept that we continue to remain as Nigeria, at least for now. In terms of Sharia being in the Constitution, likewise, I don't think he can remove it on his own. That would take a constitutional amendment that requires 2/3 of the states. It requires majority in the National Assembly and 2/3 of the states to change it. And the question of why is it there in the first place and should it be there is a completely different argument entirely. But I suppose because there's Sharia courts that dispense justice in the northern part of the country, probably under the provision of the administration of justice, perhaps Sharia was mentioned in keeping with the fact that that is part of the law that is practiced up in the north.
I think the case is even in the Supreme Court.
Yes, it probably is.
Mr. Dayakintobi, as always, thanks for coming through. We went through storm today.
But we got here.
Hell and warm waters.
In spite of it all.
In spite of it all, we're here. But I want to thank you for always coming through.
You're welcome. In the United Kingdom, they say, in spite of hail, thunder, snow, whatever the storm, the postman will always get to you. So we are post people here today.
If I had the luxury of time, what I would have filmed, maybe if I was way earlier, because what I saw happen today was so dramatic. I was honking. People were waiting, nobody cared, and there was a gentleman inside the flood. Everybody was waiting, will this guy survive? Will this car survive? If it survives, we move. If it doesn't survive, and that's a major shortcut to me coming to the office, I would have been here. So I had to go and take another, because nobody was moving.
That's a classic.
Everybody was waiting. Will this guy survive the storm, or will he survive the storm?
Guinea pig.
Thank you. Thank you as always.
My pleasure always. Good morning.
Bukola was literally catching her breath when I came here. Oh, sorry, Bukola. We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll get to this court judgment that has shaken the entire polity. What is it really all about? What are they saying? We'll help you make sense of it. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's still the Morning Brief, your perfect morning starter on Channels Television. And we're getting straight into our first conversation for the day. Of course, it borders on the court decision that came through yesterday invalidating the timeline for the conduct of primaries and the nomination of candidates. And what are the odds and ends of this court judgment? Interestingly, one of the papers that we're unable to get to today does an interesting capture of that story. 2027, from the front page of Daily Trust, by the way, court opens door for defections. So let's bring in our guest today. Mr. Ekimini Udim is a legal practitioner who joins us this morning on the program. Welcome, Mr. Udim.
Thank you for having me.
And so beyond all of the concerns that we have expressed about this as a possible fallout of, extension of timeline, issuing of a new election timetable and opening the door of defections, what are the possible legal implications that could emanate from this court ruling, if not challenged by INEC, by the way?
So the legal implication of the judgment of the Federal High Court in the matter just discussed, the matter we're discussing, is that the court is simply saying to INEC, you do not have the right to make provision in your time table contrary to the provisions in the Electoral Act. Remember, it is the Electoral Act that gives INEC the power to have its own guidelines and also have the timetable for the election. And so the court is basically saying in summary, your guidelines, your timetable must be issued in tandem with the provisions of the Electoral Act. Any provision in your timeline, in your timetable, that is in conflict with a provision in the Electoral Act, such provision shall be seen by law to be null and void. So basically, the court has clearly reminded INEC that INEC is a creation of the law. INEC has the power to make a timetable and make guidelines pursuant to the provisions of the Electoral Act. And whatever INEC is to include in its timeline, in its timetable, has to be strictly in compliance with the provisions of the Electoral Act. Now, a typical example of what the court has said is looking at Section 29 of the Electoral Act. That section says that every political party shall, not later than 120 days to election, submit the list of its candidates for the general election to INEC. Now, that means that 120 days is 4 months. INEC says political parties must submit the list of the candidates by the end of this month. Okay? Now, when you look at that, that submission is way beyond 4 months. That submission is such, that
timeline,
insisting that the timeline is way beyond the 120 days that the Electoral Act has provided, okay? And so the court is saying, INEC, anybody that has any political party that brings the names of candidates to you, not later than 120 days, you have no right in law to reject such list. You have to accept it because the law says 120 days before the election. So that will mean that a political party that is unable to submit its list to INEC between now and the end of this month, that political party will still have up to, let's say, August to submit the names to INEC. And INEC will be under an obligation to accept because the Electoral Act says 120 days before the election. Election is in January, so 120 days before the election will be 4 months, and that will be around August. And therefore, INEC will not have the right in law to reject any list that a political party presents to INEC as being the candidates that have emerged from their primaries if such list is presented to INEC not later than 120 days before the election.
So let's look at another portion of the Electoral Act, and I'm wondering if it conflicts with Section 29 of the same Electoral Act, and this is Section 77. And I'm asking this because the candidates are also members of the party. Take a look at this, Section 77, subsection 4, Electoral Act. Each political party shall make their register available to the Commission not later than 21 days before the date fixed for the party primaries, congresses, or conventions. And so, you recall that INEC had earlier fixed April it had earlier released an election timetable that it had to reschedule. And so, where has INEC erred in law based on the court decision following through from the provision of this Section 77.4 of the Electoral Act?
Well, clearly, Section 77.4 is in conflict, if you look at it carefully, with Section 29 of the Electoral Act. But whatever be the case, even if a political party is to submit the register of its candidates to INEC 21 days before the conduct of primaries, that should not stop INEC from still accepting the names of candidates that have emerged from that political party's primaries, even if the name of that person is not here. After all, if you look at this Section 77, it doesn't say that anybody whose name is not in the register that is submitted to INEC 21 days before the primaries cannot, emerge as a candidate of that political party. So for as long as this section has not clearly said anybody whose name is not here in the register that is to be submitted to INEC, that would mean that the person can join the political party even after the submission of this list to INEC, and that person will still be qualified to stand the election. I would also interpret this to mean that this submission can be updated from time to time. Even after you have submitted it, you can continue to update the register with INEC from time to time, because you cannot shut citizens of the country from registering and becoming members of a political party. It's a constitutional right. And the Constitution has not provided any time limit for one to belong to a political party. And that is why some of us are worried about some provisions of the Electoral Act. This is a clear provision of the Electoral Act that has the propensity of conflicting with the provision of the Constitution regarding the right of citizens of the country to join political parties of their choice at any time. You can join a political party a day before election, 2 days before election, because it is a constitutional right. So Section 77, when placed side by side with the provisions of the Constitution regarding the right to belong to a political party of your choice, when these two sections are placed side by side, I would say that someone can still become a member of a political party at any time because the Constitution says so, and this register can be updated from time to time until such time that the Electoral Act itself has said, you know what, you cannot bring candidates anymore to submit to INEC. And that time is 120 days before the conduct of the general election. And it's good that you have presented it here for everybody to see, because that section is clear. Section 29, that every political party shall, not later than 120 days before the election, submit the list of candidates emerging from its primaries to INEC. And that simply means that at any time before 120 days time frame, INEC is under an obligation to receive the names submitted to them by political parties. And that is the whole essence of the judgment of the Federal High Court that was delivered 2 days ago. You also look at a section of the judgment that talks about INEC timetable, saying that political parties must stop campaign 2 days before election. And the court says no. When you look at Section 98 of the Electoral Act, that section says 24 hours before election. As an electoral body, you cannot provide a timetable that is in conflict with this clear provision of the Electoral Act, because it is the Electoral Act that gives you the power to even make the timetable. So you cannot provide less than or above what the provision of the Electoral Act has said. And it is a globally accepted thing. You don't stop campaign days before election. You have to keep the momentum, and therefore it's well known, 24 hours before the election. And this is one of those things that the Federal High Courts have mentioned. And I think that INEC should take a cue from these judgments and then go to amend some sections of that timetable that they have released.
All right, Mr. Kevin, before we look at broad implication of how it will impact the polity, let's go to Section 775. What it says, only members whose names are contained in the register shall be eligible to vote and be voted for in party primaries, congresses, and convention. Yeah, I'm sure my producer will put up Section 77, subsection 5. Yes, that's the section. So you see how it constricts, you know. My understanding as the spirit of this part of the legislation called the Electoral Act was to bring some level of sanity to defections after you lose primaries and all of that. But now, broadly speaking, are we saying that what this judgment is effectively saying is, INEC, you can put all of this, your timetable, and put all of this, your legislation based on the Electoral Act, but please, when it comes to timelines, avoid political parties. If you have up to 120 days as the limit for which you must submit nominated candidates for an exercise like an election, you don't have any right to do that exercise, insist that that exercise must be conducted and end on May the 30th. Is that what they are saying effectively?
Now, when you look at this section of the Electoral Act, this is one section that is in competition with the provisions of the Constitution, and that is very unacceptable law. You go back to the Constitution, the fundamental rights to freedom of association. It doesn't limit Nigerian citizens. It doesn't have a time frame for Nigerian citizens to belong to political parties and then be voted for and then have the opportunity of participating in the electoral process. So I must commend the gentlemen that went to court to set aside these sections that we are discussing in these judgments today. And there is need, maybe for the Nigerian Bar Association, and maybe for any other public-spirited individual to go to the court and also challenge this very section of the of the Electoral Act, because this section attempts to restrict the rights of citizens of Nigeria whereas the Constitution of Nigeria has not restricted the rights of citizens of Nigeria to belong to political parties of their choice at any time. It doesn't say you must belong 20 days, 30 days before you go for primaries in a political party. So to that extent, a provision of the Electoral Act that says that your name must be in the register submitted to INEC way ahead of the primaries. That section is in conflict with the provisions of the Constitution, and therefore, I think that this section should also be taken to the courts before the election, and then so as for us to hear clearly the pronouncements of the courts on it. But be that as it may, let's assume that every person that wants to contest election has submitted his name to the political party, has registered in the political party, and the political party has also submitted his name. Because if you want to stand the election, you shouldn't drag your feet. You should be able to move on time, go register, get the card of the political party, and then your name is submitted to INEC. So for political parties that have the registers ready, I would encourage you to submit. But I think that any political party that does not submit within 21 days before primaries, then that political party is not in violation of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is the organic law of the land. Another thing political parties can do to avoid these, so as no one knows how it's going to be interpreted tomorrow by any court, another thing political parties can do to avoid this is to delay the time for their primaries. Because by the judgments of the courts now, primaries can still be conducted by political parties even up to July. Because the law, by Section 29 of the Electoral Act, it says that every political party shall, not later than 120 days to the general election, submit the list of its candidates to INEC. That means that a political party that is yet to have sufficient number of candidates or members can still wait, continue the registration. You submit the register to INEC sometime in maybe June or early July, and then you fix your time for primaries, give notice to INEC, 21 days notice, and then you'll be able to avoid this section of the Electoral Act that I personally think is very inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution. But until that section is set aside, the political party can keep the time for the conduct of the primaries of that party up to July, because you have up to August to have 120 days before the election.
I was going to that. I think it's you have up to maybe somewhere around September, so you can. That's 120 days before the election, maybe somewhere around September, so you can conclude all your activities maybe in August based on this judgment. But let's look at the broader implication here. The understanding could be that in the spirit of the legislation is to help INEC plan better. Others will say it's a mischief legislation also to constrict people to stay within political parties and not have the ability to defect in case they lose in their primaries, just like the APC is dealing with now. So that contains the ability to seek their aspiration or find expression for their aspiration in other political parties. But tell us what the political implication will be for a party like the APC and for the opposition. That's on one hand. On the other hand, the ability of INEC to properly plan for the election, given this outcome of the judgment.
The law allows INEC to plan for the election using electronic means, and therefore, for me, the issue of collation of names from across the Federation of Nigeria shouldn't be a problem, because INEC is largely computerized. Over the years, INEC has been taking so much money from taxpayers' money to build its website, to build its database, and then have very strong electronic base. And therefore, for that reason, just a simple email from political parties straight to INEC, and that will, for me, not cause any delay in INEC preparing for the election. See, the problem we have in this country is that a lot of things we still want to do them manually. Technology has made it easy for thousands and millions of names to be uploaded in seconds, and therefore, if INEC employs technology, there will be no issue of delay. Now, as regards APC that has already conducted its primaries in some of the positions, I have read some analyses that APC will have to conduct their own again following these judgments of the court. I don't think so. And why do I say so? Any political party that has conducted its primaries and then the names are ready for submission to INEC, that party can go ahead and submit. Because you have to go back to section 29 of the Act, and we look at the phrase, not later than 120 days. That means you can submit earlier than 120 days. What the law is saying is that your names will not be accepted if, okay, you have brought it out here, every political party shall not later than 120 days before the date appointed for general election. So it means that you can submit yours earlier if yours is ready. And so if APC has its own ready, they can go ahead and submit to INEC. INEC will still accept it, but INEC does not have the power under the law to stop a political party whose own is not ready. The political party says we have to wait and take benefit of the 120 days that the law has given. That party is rightly in good standing under the law, and therefore INEC will not have the right to reject names that are not submitted at the current time frame of the end of this month, because by section 29, the law says not later. And so if APC, like I said, has their own ready, they can go ahead and submit. You can submit earlier, but not later than 120 days. And for me, I think this clears a lot of doubts and gives every political party the opportunity to do things right. Even the APC can still hold on and then have a complete list and have a fair list, and then submit to INEC also 120 days before the election. Any other political party can do the same, but like I said, any political party that is unable to meet the May 30th deadline, that political party, by this judgment of the court, is covered by law and still has up to 120 days before the election. Election is in January, and 120 days before the election, for me, it should be around August, but you have said it's around September. And that, for me, gives a lot of window for political parties to be able to get things right.
So, Mr. Udim, you have consistently emphasized the point that cannot be ignored. And the point is that every Nigerian has the right to identify with a political party, and the Constitution does not prescribe a time frame within which a Nigerian can join a political party. Is it 20 days? Is it 15 days? And that's an important point. But isn't it also just as important to differentiate the Nigerian who just wants to be politically savvy from the electoral class who use political parties as an SPV? I wonder if this portion of the Electoral Act anticipates that nomadic political culture that we've been talking about time and again. And so how do we check that particular political behavior?
The general opinion out there would be that there should be consistency by politicians. If you look at a country like Ghana, after Jerry Rawlings took over, Jerry Rawlings did a lot to sanitize the political system in Ghana. And today you have two formidable political parties in Ghana. And you don't have people moving from one political party to another. When the current president of Ghana lost election after serving out his first term, he did not move to another political party. He remained in his political party and then built the party and then contested there and won the election. And it's very helpful to the polity and to development in Ghana. And so we would have loved the same thing to be in Nigeria. But at the same time, any citizen of the country that decides to move from political party to another, especially if he's not a member of the legislature, there is no sanction in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So until the Constitution is amended to say that citizens shall not move from one political party to another, if you have not been in a political party for 5 years or so, then until that time, citizens still have the right to move from one political party to another. And therefore, a citizen of the country who wishes to fly the ticket of a particular political party and then he goes for screening, he's not even screened, he's not even given any justifiable reason, but he's disqualified. I think there's nothing in the Constitution that stops that citizen of the country from embracing the membership of another political party. And if that political party gives him the standing to go for election, then so be it. He has the right, because like I said, the Constitution, which is the organic law of the land, does not stop citizens from moving from one political party to another, and even the Electoral Act has not stopped that. So with these judgments of the Federal High Court delivered 2 days ago, it appears that the window has been opened for any dissatisfied person to move from one political party to another, register, and then ensure that that political party is able to conduct its primaries and then send the names of the candidates to INEC not later than 120 days before the election. If that is done, I don't see anybody mounting any challenge in court, and I don't even see such challenge as succeeding, because clearly the Constitution of Nigeria has not precluded citizens of the country from joining political parties of their choice at any time they so choose to join.
Interesting. And, you know, this reminds me of the constitution of one of the political parties, you know, which became a matter of contention in the leadership of the ADC, I believe. That portion allows the party's national chairman to waive the time of entry of a political party for someone who is intending to contest an elective office. So I'm wondering, do parties also need to do a second check of their own constitution to ensure that it is in line with not just the letter of the law now, but the spirit of the law, because the letter of the law has been tested right now, and there are many implications to it. But that also tells us that the conversation continues. Mr. Ekemini Udim is a legal practitioner who has joined us on this very important subject matter. Mr. Udim, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we'll move right into the next one, and Jeffrey has got this one.
Laws are meant to be tested, and we're still talking politics. As a matter of fact, Bukola, I'm aware that there is a case that has been instituted concerning other sections of the Electoral Act, including grounds of petition. Interesting days. I love this game. Let's bring it on. But hey, let's talk about another part of the conversation, but still related to politics. And this has to do with what played out in Delta State. Yesterday, we had the Honorable Commissioner for Rural Works and Information, Mr. Charles Aniogu, joining us on the program to bring us up to speed with the issues around how the primaries for the Central District threw up Senator Ifeanyi Okowa, immediate past governor of the state, as the victor, which Ned Nwoko has disputed. Ned Nwoko is the incumbent senator representing Delta North Central District. And to help us explore that conversation, we have Mr. Chris Okoba. He's a lawyer, businessman, I guess a politician, joining us on the program. Mr. Okoba, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you, Godfrey, for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. I want to believe you took time to listen or paid attention to some of the things that Mr. Charles Aniogu said yesterday. In fact, he said Senator Ned did not consult. It was, let me paraphrase now, working in silos. How could he have expected victory? And he talked about a couple of things, including the fact that even him, who is a commissioner from that senatorial district, he wasn't consulted. How many people, he challenged us to ask you and ask Senator Ned whether or not he knows the person who came from Abuja to even conduct that exercise. So there were a plethora of allegations as to his inability to canvass votes. So the results were expected. How would you respond to some of these things that Mr. Aniogu said? That is, if you listen to it.
Well, I want to acknowledge the fact that Charles Aniogu is known for his propensity for false representation of facts. What he put up yesterday was a gross exaggeration of facts with the intention to mislead the public. Ned Nwoko did absolute consultation with the members of the constituent, not with the bourgeois, just like Charles and his group normally do. Ned Nwoko consults with his constituent, with the grassroots, with those he represents, and they are in contact with him, just as he is in absolute contact with them. So that is, what I can describe as gross exaggeration of facts.
So you say it's a gross exaggeration. So let's go back to the numbers. I looked at the numbers when Senator Ned Nwoko emerged as a victor in the last election, which is serving now his term. he scored about 98,000 votes against the Labour Party guy who scored about 80-something thousand votes. In these primaries, which we doubled down, asking Mr. Charles Aniogo how the number came about. If I can, correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Okowa scored about 113,000, and then Ned Nwoko scored about, about 6,000 or so. So when you are disputing the numbers, what does Senator Ned Nwoko have as his own record of how many votes he secured in that primaries? How many votes did Senator Okowa secure in that primaries? Because I'm sure he has agents. What counter record does he have?
Are you talking about vote from a particular ward or vote from the total
the entire exercise?
Number secured?
Yes, not as
does that,
Delta North Delta North.
That is a facial, absurdity. What I can describe as procedural, falsehood. How can you say he scored 6,000? That's not possible. Ned Nwoko scored 135,000 votes. He beat Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa in a landslide. Not just he defeated him in a landslide. He scored about 135,000 votes. In my ward alone, Ward 2, he scored about 2,000 votes. Almost 90% of the voters queued up to vote for him. When the members of the, they didn't even send members of the panel. They sent commissioners, executive assistant to the governor, senior special advisors to the governor. When these people got there, saw the huge crowd chanting Ned Nwoko's name, they entered their car and drove away. They never counted, they never accredited, they never did anything. Come on, Greg, you don't clap with one hand.
So before
you don't conduct election alone.
Just before I let my colleague in, the number I have here is not even 6,000. The one reported from the Okowa camp is 2,612, while Senator Okowa scored 113,309. Those are what we have available from the senator. So he said 135,000. This is just in primaries. He couldn't even get that number in the main election. That is quite curious, don't you think?
That is facile theater of absurdity, please. How possible could that be?
No, you're not getting my question. No,
that's
hold on,
comical.
Sir. If you can hear me, sir, you're not getting my question. I just decided to put the facts right, and then I'm not asking you. 98,000 votes is what took him to the Senate. 98,000.
Yes.
In the primaries of 2 days ago, or on Monday, he scored, according to you, 135,000 votes, way in excess.
113,000.
No, that's Okowa. He's talking about Ned.
Oh, okay.
135,000. That's in excess of what he scored for what took him to the Senate. So I'm asking, how did that happen? Is it also part of the geometric number counting that we saw in these APC primaries that we've been seeing so far?
Well, what we saw was people came out in mass to vote for Senator Ned Nwoko. Maybe both PDP and APC people came out to vote, but they all queued up to vote. That's all I saw. I witnessed a huge turnout. But to say that Ned Nwoko scored 3,000 votes or 6,000 votes is, what I can describe as, factual theater of absurdity. That is complete misrepresentation of facts and what happened. That is just the truth. Though these people are known for, the propensity to represent the facts, so I don't really mind about what they said here. But I just want to put the facts straight. That's what Charles Aniogo came here to say was total misrepresentation of fact. Both the person of Ned Nwoko, the way he characterized him as a troublemaker, the way he characterized him as, isolationist, trying to isolate himself from people. He left them and went to APC because they were antagonizing him. They were fighting him. They never wanted to work with him. Even the road leading from Onichubo to Uboko, connecting Abuja, the governor refused to fix it because he believed that if he fixes it, that will be of political advantage to Ned. Ned approached him so many times. Even in my presence, he called Charles Aniago, asked him if he come in here and tell him we have the full record of their conversation. He said that the governor said he shouldn't fix it. Tell him to come here, we will bring the full record. They recorded conversation between him and Senator Ned. So why are they lying? Why are they putting up this falsehood? Even Okowa, when he was as a governor, the health system in Delta State, he's a medical doctor, but the health system in Delta State, developed into, petrifying retrograde. And he's a medical doctor. All he did was to set up a department of epidemiologists where he put the doctor and be pumping money in there. These people fleeced the state, himself and the current governor, who was his speaker, and they both were approving money for themselves. Okowa spent this money to push our president out, to make sure our president doesn't win an election. And he's now going to Senate to work with him. How is he going to work with a man who wanted not to be president? Is he going there to impeach him? So how is he going to work with him? So we know these people, they are just confusionists. They are liars, bunch of liars.
So, Mr. Okoba, although that is part of the conversation, and we've had a gentleman...
Dr. Okoba, please, correct that, Dr. Okoba.
Dr. Okoba, we'll have to determine whether or not, in line with the new mandate of the Ministry of Education, who have charged us to only refer to those who, got their doctorate by academic rigor before we can go ahead and refer to you as doctor. So you're still a mister, even if you're a doctor, whether by honorary doctorate or, by academic rigor. So both titles will suffice. And so that's part of the conversation without losing sight of where we're headed now. But we're going to leave some of the things that you're saying in the realm of allegation and not, take it as a matter of
We have facts. We have facts.
Until that is proven, we'll leave it at in the realm of allegation for the purpose of this conversation. Now, to the other allegations leveled against your own, will I call him boss now, Senator Ned Nwoko, yesterday, I'd like you to speak to some of them. And Mr. Aniago did say yesterday, without quoting him copiously, that Senator Ned Nwoko's footprints are evidently absent in Delta North, hence his loss at the primaries. He did say that Senator Ned Nwoko didn't do empowerment for his people, that he didn't even buy the cheapest goat for elders of, Delta North. So I'd like you to speak to some of these things. And I'm indeed reading a report from 2024 where some elders in Oshimili local government accuse him of lack of consultation and selective empowerment in Delta North. So if that is the case, why has your senator not left enviable footprints that would have given him a smooth sail in this election, although it is being contested and we're waiting for the national party's outcome? So I'd like you to respond to that.
Senator Ned Nwoko left a footprint that is unmatchable. The best senator ever produced by the people of Delta North. He's been a quintessential lawmaker without comparison. By mile apart, he's been the best. He has empowered thousands of people in Delta North. He built a university where 60% of the people attend on scholarship, no school fees, sports university. Go and check it out. Go and Google it. He empowered people. He employed people. He built jobs. That university could have been built in Abuja or in Lagos or any other place, but he chose to build it in his own community. My own king, my own traditional ruler, who is my brother, he gives land to people who want to develop in my community to build. Free of charge. He doesn't charge them money. The commission, the traditional ruler of Onichubo is Majesty Obichukwu Malese. Go and ask people. Not the one they are fighting him for trying to build a university in their community. Let's talk about empowerment. He has empowered more people than Okowa. When Okowa was in the Senate, how many people did he empower? When, as a governor, what did he do for Delta North? What did he do for Aniocha North? Charles Anyagu was talking that he visited Delta North to attend burials. Oh, those who died from frustration of his leadership, he attended their burial to celebrate their death. Is that what he does? I saw his reaction yesterday when you were asking him about the rural electrification and those not having light.
Talk to us
He
about...
said no concern.
Talk to us about his empowerment programs. Please be specific about his empowerment programs.
The character of Senator Ned. They shouldn't come here because they're not in their own way, that they have failed totally.
Please, Mr. Okoba, please be specific about the empowerment programs that Senator Ned Nwoko has carried out in Delta North. Yes.
He has empowered more people than all the senators we've ever had in Delta State. All put together, including Okowa. He was there for 4 years. He never empowered a single person.
Please remain with your own principle. You can, suspend the commentary on Senator Okowa currently.
I will remain with him, but I have to also address what these people can say about him.
But be specific. Besides the sports university that you said he built, what other empowerments did he do specifically for the youths of Delta North?
You see, Ned doesn't believe in giving people fishes. He believes in teaching them how to fish. He set up programs to give people way of life, to empower people to live and live long and have a process of survival. Not for them just to give them goats, give them Okada. Is that the way Okowa empowers his children?
Mr. Okoba, if you can hear me, Mr. Okoba, just hold on. Please, I would like you to be consistent. You have a right of reply. Hold on. Just hold on, sir. Can you just hold on? Can you just hold on? You need to calm down so that, because, loud doesn't mean logic. If we keep shouting at each other, it's not going to solve a problem. They were here yesterday, and they posited a challenge on live TV of how being a senator for almost 3 years, he hasn't really affected the lives of people. In fact, Mr. Nyogu clearly said, not even a 3-month-old goat. I remember that analogy he gave. You have an opportunity on live television to say, that is not correct. So give us, in terms of... Can you just hold on, please? I'm giving you an opportunity
to... You keep talking over me. Did I not say that? You keep talking over me.
Mr. Okoba, I'm trying to help you here. So please calm down. Please calm down. I'm saying, we're asking in specifics. Tell us, if you say he doesn't do the Okada and all of these things he does, walk us through like 5 major landmark things he did, including bills that has impacted the people of Delta North. Can you do that?
He has sponsored bills for more schools to be set up in Delta State. He has built a university. He has sponsored bills to support widows. He has sponsored bills to support orphans. He's paying school fees for over 5,000 orphan children in Delta North specifically. Is that not empowerment? He's building a future for them. So if you're talking about giving gold, buying gold and giving to somebody, how much does he spend on a child that he's paying school fees for? Most of them in private universities. Go to Veritas University and see how many kids he's paying school fees for. Go to Veritas University here in Abuja and ask. You are talking about one goat. How many people have Okowa paid school fees for? You're giving goat to people. You're giving Okada to people. And you call that empowerment. We are talking of building a bridge. And that is what Ned Nwoko has done.
All right, let's look forward.
And he's done it distinctively.
Let's look forward now. Now, we can argue all of this on live television, but the APC has a decision to make on who represents them for Delta North Senatorial District. Ned Nwoko has his case to say, I scored 135,000 votes as against whatever it is that you said Okowa scored. Okowa said I scored 113,000 votes as against Ned's 2,000 votes. What is the way forward? What are you guys doing now? Because I'm sure pretty soon we're going to see lists of successful candidates that have been nominated by the party.
Well, Ned Nwoko is the should be the legally nominated person. He doesn't have any baggage, no criminal investigation, no criminal indictments, pending over him. That's number one. Number two is that he scored more votes than Dr. Okowa. What they are claiming was something they wrote in the State House. They brought the electoral officials, all the people they brought to supervise the election. They kept them in the State House and sent the executive assistant and the commissioners to go and conduct the election. They brought notepads and they were taking pictures and they walk away. No record, no accreditation. And they are claiming they scored 115,000. They should be there. They won. Which election did they win? That is in total contradiction with the fact on ground. So Ned is the winner of the election.
So if you're saying that, he is the winner of the election, because we did ask Mr. Aniagwo yesterday, and he said, in fact, one local government, I hope I'm recalling accurately, has a register of nothing less than 150,000 members of the APC, one particular local government area. So if you're saying that Senator Ned Nwoko was able to score 135,000 votes, can you back that up? And we ask this over and over again because of the videos we have seen of very curious counting, moving from 200 to 1,000. I wonder if you can back that up, especially if, you say that no voting process was allowed. And I also like you to speak to the way and manner in which the APC has, conducted these primaries, preventing numbers from being announced at the primary process and, insisting that only the party can determine the outcome of the process. So how democratic is that in the first place? And doesn't it preclude the process, encourage manipulation of the election results? Hence, other contenders like, your principal crying foul over the process.
That was a concocted effort prepared to chicane and deceive and defraud the electorate. That's exactly what they did. That was a charade. That was a sham. How can you conduct an election and you don't tell people what they score? You don't count, you don't accredit, you don't take numbers. And you say you want to go and announce. And they go to government house and they are writing numbers. Don't forget that these same people you are talking about, Dr. Okowa, lost in his own unit the last election. Or has everything transformed in just few days that they have forgotten what he did to them as the governor of Delta State?
So you're saying
they will give him that kind of vote?
Mr. Okoba, you're saying your party, the APC, conducted a sham of election. You're saying your party, the APC, manipulated the election. That's your party.
Yes. And the national chairman was part of this fraud. The national chairman was part of this fraud. The national chairman, because he has compromised, he's part of this chicanery that is going all over the country.
All right, Mr. Okoba.
Yes, I will say it over and over again. Okoba. And if I see him, I will tell him in his face that he's part of this chicanery that is going on.
All right, Mr. Okoba, we're totally out of time. We'll leave your strong words and allegation in the realm of allegations. Everybody you've spoken about, I'm sure, has a right of reply. But let's maintain.
They can come out.
Yes.
They can come and reply, but they let them put up facts.
So,
we have facts. We have videos. We have evidence to support.
So because we're totally out of time, so that we make sense of the situation. But I wish you guys the very best. Let's say that some of the things you said are still in the realm of allegation. So let's put out there. Chris Sokoba is a lawyer, businessman, author. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on the program. We know it's an ongoing conversation. Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll switch gears right here on the program. Stay with us.
Welcome back. And so this time we suspend the political permutations and positioning for now and talk health. Of course, in the last couple of days, we have been trailing surveillance systems, particularly following the outbreak of Ebola in parts of Central Africa. And yesterday we did have a conversation with an official from the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, with assurances coming through that at all official borders, surveillance is being strengthened, and of course to ensure that any possible spread of the disease is checked with effective response mechanisms. And so besides manned land borders, there are also there's also the aviation sector. And of course, the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority has placed airlines and airport authorities on high alert following this fresh outbreak of Ebola. But what does tightening surveillance in the aviation sector look like to prevent a spread of the Ebola virus? And not just the Ebola virus, the WHO is also, issuing alert on the emergence of the new Hanta virus. So let's have this conversation. And joining us on the program now is Mrs. Esther Shitu. She's the head Aeromedical Standards, Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, NCAA. She joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Madam, good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
And thank you so much for finding time to come through, a difficult, rainy, wet Friday morning. Yeah, we're grateful.
Thank you.
So let's start the conversation. What does strengthening of surveillance by airlines look like at their many stops, which is where, passengers either arrive or, do their necessary checks before takeoff? So what does that kind of, medical check look like with the airlines?
Well, the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority is the regulatory body in the aviation industry. So we don't practically or personally carry out those activities. However, we perform oversight functions on the airlines and, of course, other aviation activities. So when you are talking of heightened surveillance, it means that there's already surveillance in place. So normally, regularly, all the airlines, the airports have a surveillance protocol. So when we have such outbreaks, we now have a heightened mode of surveillance. And this means maybe meeting, coordinating, and collaborating with other agencies, especially at the point of entry. That means the port health, the air traffic controllers, the airport managers, the aviation medical people from Federal Airport Authority, to know the level of their preparedness and how they plan. So there's a protocol, and they give us like a flow chart of how they will navigate when passengers arrive or when the airlines come in, what's to be done. And interestingly, Nigeria just performed an audit, that's the aviation sector, and the NCA scored about 91.4%, rising from 70-something%. And airport surveillance and preparedness was one of the areas we were checked on. Kano and Abuja were used at points, central points for that exercise, and we had tabletop exercises. So it was like we were already preparing for emergency. It was to test our emergency preparedness status, and that has helped us in this Ebola scare. So we've had series of meetings. So that's heightened surveillance with all the other agencies concerned. We have had like 5 or 6 meetings. We had one yesterday for about 2 hours to see how people, the airlines, the handlers, the people, port health at the entry points are prepared and the kind of surveillance they have mounted.
So for those who are set to travel anytime soon, what does that protocol that you talk about for arrival, especially for arrival of passengers coming into Nigeria, what does that protocol look like? What are they checked for, and what do they have to present?
Okay, we know the NCA, that's Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, through our Director General, Captain Chris Najomo, issued an advisory circular to all the airlines and stakeholders. And then the captain is advised to report any suspicious case on board. Usually it will be the cabin crew that would cite them and then report to the captain, and the captain calls the tower, the air traffic controller, who then alerts the airport manager at the point of entry, at the same time alerts the port health personnel. They could also coordinate with the fan medicals who are at the airport. So when that comes in, AFSEC, Aviation Security at the airport, under the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, would cordon areas about 30 meters away from the public, and the air traffic controller would direct, that is when there's a reported case, the aircraft in a baying point where it would park away from the general public. From that point on, port health and other medical personnel will go in well prepared with their PPE, and do the vital things, take vitals, wear their PPE if they need to do that, and then come down. And as soon as they are doing that, they are already informing the state epidemiologist. Lagos State is very well endowed, and I think other states as well. The state epidemiologist calls in, NCDC is involved, and as soon as the passenger is evacuated or suspected illness, there's a holding point, and if there's no ambulance readily on ground, the victim or suspected case is moved to that place, and then ambulance comes in, the state epidemiologist does his documentation, NCDC moves to a hospital where such cases are being quarantined or treated. So there's a process and a system in place.
So there's assurance that even though there's no, there may be no ambulance on ground should a case be detected, at the airport point, there are other personnel that can be activated immediately, to attend to that case and initiate the process that will ensure that they are moved from the airport to a medical facility. Is that a guarantee that you're offering?
Yes, there is. But you see, the essence of the pilot informing the air traffic controller is to ensure preparedness.
Okay.
So there is time to prepare for early evacuation, because that is also critical, because the longer you keep the person, the more ill he or she becomes, and the more danger he or she poses to the public. So early evacuation is the key. But there is a place, because as soon as the person disembarks or is evacuated, measures are taken, because there's no treatment for Ebola, as we all know, but other palliative measures will be put in place and taken to sustain this person until the person is moved to the final place of care.
I know that we have actively maybe about 5 or 6 international airports. So if you go to Lagos, Abuja, Enugu, Kano, Port Harcourt, are you saying that what you've just described is available at all of these, at least the 5 I've mentioned so far?
Yes, it is. That's the protocol. The NCA's role is to perform an oversight. I have gone through the Lagos one. I've had meetings with them, and we have contacted our other agencies. Apart from the Aeromed going there, we have other departments or directorates in the NCA. That's the Directorate of Air Transport Regulation, DATR. We also have the Directorate of Aerodrome and Airspace Standards. So we work in collaboration from the NCA to see that these standards are maintained. I've had chats with the Kano counterpart, the DAS and DATR, and I know this is happening. Also, yesterday I called on the DATR personnel in Lagos to inform him of the meetings we have had. They have persons representing them at this meeting. So this is now cascaded to the other airports. But as you know, Lagos and Abuja are the core areas when we talk of point of entry and passenger volume.
So are there conversations with other airports around the suspected areas? Because we don't want it to arrive. If we can keep it at bay, that would be better. They say prevention is better than cure. It's great and commendable to see the preparations for any form of these emergencies. But I think it would be better it doesn't even come. So my question has to do with, are there direct flights coming in from, say, Uganda, the DRC, or connecting flight from Uganda, DRC to Nigeria? And is the NCA having conversations with those people to see how they can keep it at bay? Although they are sovereign, there's a limit to which you can control, but at least some level of conversation.
Yes, they should be, because, well, Nigeria also is a sovereign nation, and we can decide who comes and who doesn't come. But that decision will transcend from the presidency down to the minister before it comes to the Civil Aviation Authority. However, at one of our meetings yesterday, we were talking about, we don't have a direct flight from Uganda, but we have a connecting Uganda to Rwanda, and we have Rwanda Air coming here. And in that region, we also have people who might go to Kenya. Kenya Airways comes here. And Ethiopia is a hub. Most of the airlines in that region would probably transit at Ethiopia and come in with Ethiopian Airlines. The reason why there has not been any strict plans to maybe curtail or the entrance of some of those airlines is because WHO is telling us to be cautious, not to create pandemonium in the general public. It is still a fake. It's a public health emergency of international concern. It's not yet a pandemic like the coronavirus case we had. So people are playing it low. If you also notice, even the NCDC has not placed a lot of educational materials and information materials around, because people easily get frightened when they see that all over the place. They start, adopting several measures, traditional, religious, and a lot, and that might even expose them more. Yes, I think that conversation of maybe some airlines coming or not coming would be determined, well, diplomatically and at the very top, yes.
So if we must wait for the presidency to make such decisions concerning flights that are coming through from affected parts of Africa, what is your conversation with the NCDC? I believe you referred to it earlier on, looking like for flights that will inevitably arrive from those areas? And I ask because, statutorily, even if you wanted to travel, from here to other parts of Africa and other parts of the world, you are required to present a yellow card. So are there any extra requirements that the NCDC is considering for passenger traffic from those affected parts of Africa?
Presently, none, apart from the measures that have been put in place, because it's a non-specific illness that manifests like any other illness, like malaria and the lot. And like we know, the incubation period, you could have it, and it could last for about 3 weeks from the time you had your first contact. So one may not easily pick it, even with the thermal scanners at the point of entry. And we know that there is no vaccination, especially against this particular strain of Ebola, the Bundibugyo variety. And yellow card or something of that measure is not in place. And it's an emergency that couldn't have come in. But presently, I think WHO is liaising with other agencies like the NCDC and trying to see if vaccines could be developed from some cases that they have picked up. But that is a long-term measure. The present measure is just for us to report promptly, coordinate among all the agencies, the NCDC, the Port Health, the regulatory bodies, and then see that the crew and the passengers and the general public are being protected.
So you're saying now there is no cause for alarm from where the NCA sits?
Well, NCA, in terms of health, like I say, we perform
I know that's not your core
oversight,
area. Yes, I know.
But you see, it's based on our former experiences. I think the health system, I'm a doctor primarily.
Oh, really?
Yes, I am. I'm a medical doctor. I did specialize in aviation medicine. The health system has had prior experience with a handling of 2014, the Patrick Sawyer case, with the Ebola case, and the NCDC has been strengthened. And I think Lagos was even in the forefront during those epidemics. And I'm gladdened to see, and that it is the same doctor who was the Commissioner of Health in Lagos State, who is now heading the NCDC. So he comes with a lot of experience. And again, the health system too in Nigeria will also come with a lot of experience, having handled some of those prior cases. So there's already a system in place. So we are just strengthening those systems and recalling what we did and strengthening them. So I don't think there's any cause for alarm presently.
And just a quick check on the other viral strain that has been reported in other parts of the world. In the West, for instance, new cases, I believe, according to reports, of the hantavirus have been reported in France and Spain. Is there anything that Nigerians should be worried about as far as surveillance is concerned in the aviation sector?
Well, like we all know, the world is a global village. So I think we should be on the alert as well. But like the hantavirus, for now, well, like they say, it's not something that is person to person as such from the history that I've read and all the case reports. When it was identified in the cruise ship, it is those who had very close contact with those that were infected that had it. And I know some have been quarantined, and so far, we have not had any scare in the African continent regarding that. Maybe because we don't go on cruises, I wouldn't know. Yes.
For big men.
Yeah.
So I guess for now, we are focusing mainly on Ebola.
All
but
right.
for all viral hemorrhagic diseases, the protocol is virtually about the same.
Okay.
You know, reports, the state epidemiologist takes, NCD takes, and then there's contact tracing and vigilance. I think that is what we are maintaining now.
As this is as reassuring as it can get for all travelers coming through the major international airports in Nigeria. Just follow the protocol as Mrs. Esther Shitu has shared on this particular segment. Esther Shitu is the head at Aeromedical Standards Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, NCA. Madam, thank you so much for finding time to come talk to us about this important subject.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Indeed, same here.
Thank you.
And so straight to the next one, and Jeffrey has this one.
Yes, let's bring in a boy-child advocate. How many of you knew that May the 16th was International Boy Child Day? I don't know whether Bukola even knows that.
Oh, indeed. I have two boys, by the way.
I hear. Let's bring Solomon Ayodele is the founder, Boys Quarters Africa. Mr. Solomon, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
I like the name Boys Quarter. It reminds me of uni days. Talk to us why, because it's not a very popular thing to do. I think the only time, let me just say, one of the few times I've seen anything that has to do with boy-child advocacy was when I used to work in the city of Uyo in Akwa Ibom, and I had to go and speak to some persons. It's not quite popular. Talk to us about why that is.
Thank you again for having me. I think it's beyond another social impact movement. It's not just another NGO. One of the things we have realized is that a lot of times the society demands from men what they have not invested into boys, right? So about 7-8 years ago, I just had an eureka moment when growing up with 4 brothers, seeing the investments my parents made into us, we still got our hands into different things. And I said, it's important for us to make deliberate investments into the lives of boys, right? So the idea around Boy Scouters, as you are aware, is that the Boy Scouters is always at the back of the building. So what we're trying to do is to help boys, build boys, take them to the back of the building and help them become better people. And once they are back into the main building, they would be able to add value to society. So the truth is, the boys you ignore, the boys you don't invest in, cannot in any way become, you know, the kind of men the society is expecting them to become. So that's like the overall idea around the Boy Scouters Africa movement.
Very, very poignant. Society demands from men what they've not invested in boys. I will not forget that anytime soon. But let's talk about what you've discovered to be the challenges that boys face, the pressure from your own experience on the field, the pressure that you see young boys face that nobody really talks about, and how you are intervening.
Thank you. So I'll just mention 3. The first one is the trap of silence, right? A lot of boys are being raised to see speaking up and expressing themselves as a crime, right? Grief is being seen as weakness. This is why you would find online these days when you see a grown-up man cry, people feel like, oh, it's an aberration. Just working with young boys, we have realized that a lot of them struggle with expressing their emotions, not being able to say how they feel exactly, right? How to communicate what exactly they are feeling. So what we try to do is to create an enabling environment for them where they're able to share their thoughts, share their minds, and speak up. That's one. Number two, there's also the trap called the trap of provision, where boys are raised to see their entire life as just being a provider. So the boy is being raised to see his job description as just earning. This is why you will see boys trying to earn love, earn relationship, earn affection, earn the love of their parents, and everything becomes a transaction. So what we are trying to do at Boys Quarters is to reorientate those boys to see themselves as first human being and not human doing. So we run different campaigns across, secondary schools in Lagos. For example, we have engaged over 2 million young boys across the continent just through materials, through psychotherapeutic intervention to just help them understand that their lives is beyond just earning and providing. And I think the final one that I'm going to mention is that a lot of Nigerian boys are lonely, right? They do not see relationship and brotherhood beyond competition, beyond trying to become the first. And this is, reflected in our religion, in our culture, right? So we had recently built a platform called myguy.me, where we are building a digital infrastructure where older men like you can come on the platform to mentor young men, to provide to them succor, to provide to them support. And I think a final thought that I'm going to share on this is that we need a lot of good men to come out to show those young boys their vulnerability. Those boys don't need perfect men. They need men who are somewhat ordinary and can show them their scar and can hold them to become better men.
I love the way you landed, and that's a fine place, so anchor it. And it's just very, very, very insightful and interesting the way you presented your case. And I think everyone who is right-thinking and conscientious should be able to support. And that's why we brought you. We don't mind coming speaking with them, because it's important. Based on that your quote, if we want to raise the best of men, let's begin with investing in the best of boys. I must thank you. Solomon Ayodele, founder, Boys Quarters Africa. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bukola says she has them at home. Let me throw it to her. Bukola.
Yes, indeed. It takes a village to train a child. So important what, he is doing with Boys Quarters. Many more boys should get under the umbrella of the Boys Quarters. But there's another individual who's doing something in another space just as important in the development sector. Oluchi Okoye joins us now, and she is an Astia Award winner. Oluchi emerged from as a top 10 finalist globally for the 2026 Astia Guardians Global Nursing Award. And guess what? She is not just a nurse, she is a nurse in a specific field, forensic nursing. Oluchi, is such an honor to meet you. Welcome to the Morning Brief.
Good morning. Good morning.
And so tell us about this Astia Awards and what it means to you.
All right. Astia Guardians Global Nursing Award. It's just a global award that is just to encourage nurses that are doing a whole lot. Like you mentioned, I'm a forensic examiner, and I work with Rape Crisis Center in Lagos as a forensic examiner and also as expert witness. So this ASTAN is awarding outstanding nurses that are really impacting their communities, nurses that are really doing great job or great work in their countries. So that's what it's all about.
So what is it about your work that has been outstanding in your community that, stood you out for this recognition?
Like we all know, sexual and gender-based violence is a global issue. Now in Nigeria, we have just few sexual assault referral centers. So far, I have come in contact and seen over 2,500 survivors of rape and sexual assault. Mostly about 71% are children. And also, aside examination and documentation, I bridge healthcare and justice. I also work as an expert witness in court, and my testimony has helped to get conviction for survivors of rape and sexual assault. Case in point, case of 9 children that was molested. They were molested by their after-school teacher. So, and they are age 7 to 13. So, my testimony as a nurse and also as a forensic examiner helped to get conviction. And now I do the work that not only that I take care of the survivors, I also, through my testimony, require the perpetrators to face justice. So that's what is outstanding.
I will commend you. Congratulations, and thank you for the great work you're doing. But I'm curious about, beyond the award, you've earned it, so we can't take it away from you. We even want you to earn more of these awards for the work you're doing. But out of curiosity, from what you have done in terms of analytics, from a forensic point of view, I know you're examining the girls and all of that. Do you also have opportunity to think about what will make a sane adult grown man look at a child and molest it? Yeah, I can't process it. It's very difficult to see. I mean, this is, sometimes you hear a 2-year-old.
7 months.
7 months old. 5-year-old. Molested by a 30, 50, God knows what. What do you think is going on?
I think some of these people are just, pedophiles. There are people that get interested in children. And that is, I can say, is insane. It's not normal. Then again, drug abuse. A lot of people abuse drugs, and when they are under the influence of hard drugs, they can do and regret their acts later. Because, for instance, whenever we get to court, sometimes I don't have that privilege to speak with perpetrator, but if I do, you see them regretting it. And when you ask them what exactly is the issue, they can't even tell you any reason why they did what they did. They just say, Nigerian thought, or what they say is just devil. So what I did was, last year I started a radio show talk that I'm now sensitizing the community. You should know the consequences of this. So now it's not because they claim they don't even know why they are doing that. So now, can we help you not to do it? Like, let's sensitize you to let you know that you can be in prison for life for doing this. Some of them don't even know that it's a crime. They feel it's normal. Okay, the children may not speak out. So let me just take advantage of them because these are vulnerable population. Nobody will hear about it without knowing that children too are being sensitized to also speak out. Okay, so now I took it upon myself last year to say, if you don't know the reason why you are abusing children, now know the consequences. So now I'm trying to see if we can have more men and women that can protect the children, protect the vulnerable population, instead of perpetrators. So we'll have protectors. So that's exactly
well done.
One of the things I'm doing to, sensitize the community.
I wonder if we have time for one more.
I doubt.
I doubt that we have time for one more. But Oluchi, just speak to what you find to be the demography of those who are predominantly in, seen in these acts. We just finished talking with someone who is advocating for the boy child. Do we see more male pedophiles, or there are women also in the mix? And what is missing in the home front, that leads these people to this despicable act? If you can do that in 60 seconds.
Okay, all right. We see more male perpetrators. Let me say 95 or 98% are male. We have just few. And they're not only molesting girl children, they're also molesting boys. So now you see that initially you can say it's only the girls that can be molested sexually. No, boys can. So what we have to do at home, because it might not really change an adult, but children, can you start teaching them how to speak out? Also start, sensitizing the community in believing survivors' story. You have to believe in them, don't shut them down. And again, this is underreported field. So every survivor story is important. So give them that support, train your children on speaking out, especially, I'm not saying, especially parents, I can't say only mothers. I wanted to say mothers, make your children your friend, but I would say parents, because even men can be like the boy child, men can also be a figure. You can imagine a father telling the son, please, if anything happens, speak to me, or even they will. Parents, when children know that their parents can listen to them, they will tend to speak out.
And just as it's an underreported field, we don't have enough of forensic nurses like you who can stand up for the vulnerable. And so we appreciate you for what you're doing, Oluchi Okoye. Oluchi Angel Okoye is an Astia Guardians Global Nursing Award winner for 2026. Thank you for coming on the Morning Brief.
Thank you.
And that's it on the program. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your weekend. Sunrise Daily is up at the top of the hour. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Bye-bye.
And do your part to make Nigeria great. Thank you for watching. We'll be back again on Monday. I am Bukola Koka.